Over the past 20 years, Turkey has invested heavily in its high-speed rail projects, and the network is continually growing. This also includes the introduction of their incredible high-speed trains that have some of the most luxurious seating out there, and you won't believe how much I paid for this VIP compartment, as I take an over 4-hour journey from the country's largest city, Istanbul, down to the capital, Ankara. Now join me as the journey continues. Now there is one place I need to show you first before we kick off this video properly. Haydarpaşa Station, located on the Anatolian or Asian side of Istanbul, and is just before the border to the European side. Once Turkey's busiest railway station, this grand station dates back to 1872 during the Ottoman era and acted as the main railway terminal for Istanbul's Anatolian side, not only across Turkey but even internationally at one point to places such as Baghdad, and even Mecca was planned at one point. The station sadly faced closure in 2012 amidst the opening of Turkey's high-speed rail network and the Marmara project, but is fortunately undergoing restoration and will become the new high-speed terminal for Istanbul in the coming years. But where are the trains going in the meantime? To answer that, we have to rewind and head back, well, here, Söğütlüçeşme station. The station here is as old as the Haydarpaşa terminal I just showed you, but much less appealing as you can see. It was closed in 2013 and subsequently reopened in 2019 as part of the Marmara project, which provides a through rail link between Istanbul's Asian and European sides, and is undoubtedly the easiest way to get here alongside the metro bus. Besides ticketing facilities, a few shops outside, and this rather cool locomotive sculpture, there's not really much else here, I'm afraid, but still, it does the job for now. You'll want to get here early regardless, as unlike the Marmara, the high-speed YHT services TCDD or Turkish State Railways operate use airport-style security, as typically seen in Spain for example, though if there are no queues like today, this typically takes no more than a few minutes to clear. All being well, of course. Once through, it's on to a very crowded waiting area, which really shows how well Turkey has embraced high-speed rail. Even weeks in advance, most trains completely sell out. Our train today is the 10:40 departure to Ankara, one of 15 daily high-speed departures with several return services a day extended to Halkalı on the European side, and one return service a day extended further east to Sivas, using the latest high-speed line. Boarding commences around 30 minutes before scheduled departure, and after a while of waiting, members of staff will do an ID check, either a Turkish ID card for nationals or, in my case, passports for foreigners. And here we are. Our train today is a TCDD HT 80,000, the flagship of the Turkish high-speed rail network. 19 of these units were built by Siemens Mobility between 2013 and 2021 and form part of their ever-growing Velaro family commonly seen in Europe, China and Russia. 18 of the sets are capable of 300 km per hour and are currently licensed for Turkey only, though their first unit was built to the same specs as the ICE Velaro D used in Germany and is thus capable of 320 km per hour, though on the Istanbul to Ankara route, all sets only reach a maximum of 250 km per hour in regular service. All services on the Turkish high-speed rail network are either run using these or the CAF Sepia HT 65,000 units, the latter being the first high-speed trains to run in the country and will be coming to the channel soon. Each train set consists of 8 carriages comprising 1 business class car, 1 dining car and 5.5 second class cars, carriage 2 containing the exclusive VIP compartments which I'll be travelling in today. Despite the boarding measures in place, it's still pretty chaotic as you can see. The platform heights at Söğütlüçeşme are, should we say, not well accommodated for the doors of YHT trains, so ramps are provided by staff just before boarding and alighting, providing level access for all passengers. And here we are, one of 3 VIP compartments which occupies up to 4 passengers, featuring one of the best train seats out there at the moment, which we'll of course look at as we get going. Luggage can be stored just underneath the small table here, as well as using the larger racks in the vestibules for anything bigger. We start our journey off by navigating through Istanbul's dense metropolitan area before we enter the high-speed line after Izmit, making further calls at Eskişehir and Eryaman before arriving into Ankara at close to 3 PM, with our YHT taking 4 hours and 16 minutes to cover a distance of 533 kilometers, and we'll see why shortly. We depart Istanbul on time at 10:40 AM, ready to commence the long journey down to Ankara.
Dear ladies, gentlemen and children, high-speed train which goes to Ankara. Thank you for choosing Turkey Republic State Railways Transport Corporation. We hope to meet you in your next trip and wish you a pleasant day.
The main reason our journey is over 4 hours is due to there being no high-speed infrastructure in Istanbul and its surrounding areas, meaning we make use of the lower-speed conventional lines for the first hour or so of the trip, sharing the line with the Marmara commuter network as far as Gebze, and not exceeding more than around 100 km per hour. This very much reminds me of the northern section of the Amtrak Acela in the USA between New York and Providence, though we'll be going much faster for longer periods once we get out of Istanbul, as we'll see later. We make several stops in the Istanbul metropolitan area too, the first of which is Bostancı some 10 minutes later. We can then start to see the Sea of Marmara ahead of calling at our next stop of Pendik after a further 20 minutes or so, the previous YHT terminus in Istanbul prior to Söğütlüçeşme's opening in 2019, despite being some 30 kilometers away from the centre of Istanbul. With that, now's a good time to check out the features of the VIP compartment whilst it's still quiet. As to be expected, the seat is very comfortable with generous padding and ergonomics, as well as a plush and foldable headrest which is ideal for sleeping. Each seat features a foldable tray table with a cup holder on the left hand side and a TV screen on the right, which features journey information and movies amongst other forms of onboard entertainment. Sadly though, my screen seemed to be frozen for the entirety of the trip, meaning I couldn't use it beyond the route map, so there were some views of the front camera shots, I'm afraid. Also on the right armrest are control functions for managing the seat's rotation, as well as the recline and also the reading light, which is located on the left hand side just here. Also on this side are power and USB-A sockets below the armrests for charging devices. On the walls behind each seat are coat hooks for hanging jackets or other suitable items, and there are also controls just by the window to operate the main lights and call the attendant using these touch sensors here, as well as for the temperature control which came in handy on this very warm day. Just next to this are the alert buttons and hammer in case of an emergency, with a door lock being on top of the compartment door for additional privacy. Finally, as with other Velaros, there's a draw-down blind on the window, though this mainly helps to manage the glare and doesn't fully block the view. All in all, a brilliant product for the highest offering on the high-speed train, especially for the price I paid, but of course, more on that a bit later in the video. As we continue through the Istanbul metropolitan area, the attendant delivers the complimentary snack box included in the price of my ticket. Whilst this may not seem like much, it's still appreciated, and a lot more than what you'd get on most European high-speed trains. Whilst I'm enjoying my food, we pass through Gebze at the end of both the outer area of Istanbul and the Marmara network. Just to the right is a TCDD E44000 EMU, the first domestically designed and produced Turkish train which runs the Adapazarı Express route. Stay tuned for a video on this rather interesting train soon. Not long after Gebze, we start to run alongside the Sea of Marmara, and not only do we have some amazing coastal views, we can also see an example of ongoing works to improve rail traffic in the outer Istanbul area, which includes this new section here to provide greater capacity for both high-speed and regional traffic. In the background as well is the Osman Gazi Bridge, which links Gebze with the Yalova province over the Gulf of Izmit. Speaking of which, we enter our final stop before the high-speed line in the city of Izmit shortly afterwards, which appeared to be undergoing renovation when I made this trip. This seemed to be quite a common theme across Turkey's rail network when I visited, which is great to see as it shows they're fully committed to investing in their railways and infrastructure. Another example of this can be seen just after crossing the Sakarya River and passing through Doğan Çay, where we can see the ongoing construction of a viaduct which will eventually form part of the existing Istanbul to Ankara high-speed line, allowing YHT trains to bypass the mountainous terrain at much higher speeds and in greater capacity, given much of the route we're on now is actually single-tracked. We then finally start to speed up as we enter the main section of high-speed line after passing through several tunnels. Here, our Volaro really gets to stretch its wheels as we travel at speeds of up to 250 km per hour, the maximum speed of most high-speed lines in Turkey, though the Ankara to Konya high-speed line is expected to be upgraded for 300 km per hour in the coming years. The ride quality at these speeds is incredibly smooth and on par with the ICE Volaros used in Germany, felt as we enter tunnels, then exit, and so on. Now's a good time to take a look at the rest of the train. Here's business class, located in carriage 1 and laid out in a 2x1 configuration, which uses the same seats as the ICE4 and ICE3 redesigned interior, both of which were also majorly manufactured by Siemens. I'll cover this more in my review of Turkey's newest high-speed route between Ankara and Sivas, one you definitely don't want to miss. As mentioned earlier, 5.5 coaches on the TCDD Volaro are economy or second class, laid out in a 2x2 configuration with slightly different style seating to the German ICE, but still using the same maquette. This is still very comfortable and more than suitable for the journey lengths these trains do daily. Carriage 3 also includes the wheelchair accessible space for those with reduced mobility, though annoyingly it seemed some passengers used it for their luggage instead. Accompanying this is the wheelchair accessible toilet, with there being a decent number of standard toilets throughout the train as well. These are surprisingly spacious, and in all honesty, I've never really had much of an issue with cleanliness throughout my time on the Turkish rail network. Good job, TCDD! Now on to the only real letdown of these Volaro units, the dining car. And I know what you're thinking, why is this disappointing? Whilst the dining car itself looks fantastic and is similar in appearance to the German ICE, that's pretty much it. You won't find a proper meal service, just snacks and drinks, which, whilst is better than nothing and has reasonable prices, really limits the potential of the YHT service, especially for a near 4.5 hour journey. I ended up getting a chocolate bar and a bottle of water as it was an extremely warm day, but if you want to see the full menu, I've linked it in the description below. Just below, we can see the lower speed conventional lines which were previously the backbone of services between Istanbul and Ankara prior to the opening of the high speed line in the late 2000s and early 2010s. We then arrive into Eskişehir, the capital of the province of the same name, which translates to Old City in English, dating back to the Ottoman records from the 15th century. Not only is it a university town, but it's also where the first portion of Turkey's and the Middle East's first high-speed line opened in 2009, and nowadays acts as a major hub on the Turkish rail network for trains to Izmir, Konya, Ankara and Istanbul, amongst other places. Speaking of which, we then join this final section of high-speed line immediately after leaving Eskişehir. The fiddle yard to the right is where we can see numerous freight traffic as well as TCDD's sleeper and intercity coaches used on their non-high speed services, with a connection to the classic line just to the right. To be honest, this is probably one of the most scenic high speed lines I've ever rode on. The terrain in the background is really pleasing to watch on this sunny day. Oh, and before I forget, there is free Wi-Fi available on the train, though this appeared not to be working in my case, so probably want to pass on anyway. Just to the right is the portion of high-speed line towards Konya and Kalaman, which is the second high-speed line to have opened in Turkey in 2011. We, however, continue straight on towards Ankara, where we can see the Kartaltepe Mehmetçik monument just after the two high-speed lines meet. Opened in 2008, the name comes from Mehmet, a common name for Turkish soldiers for whom this statue is dedicated to, specifically those who fought in the 1921 Battle of Sakarya, the museum for which can be found just adjacent. An hour or so of high-speed running later, and we exit the high-speed line ahead of our approach into our final stop of Eryaman YHT in the western suburbs of Ankara. It's also in the Etimeskut yard just next to the station where the YHT fleet of Sepias and Volaros are maintained, giving us proximity to Ankara's main station. This station also offers connections to Ankara's Başkentray commuter network for local stops in the city suburbs. We, however, will run a further 15 minutes to Ankara, so let me take a moment to reflect on the journey. I really love my time on the YHT Volaro, and Turkey is really proving to be a powerhouse for high-speed rail with its ongoing expansion plans and the fantastic rolling stock used. I would say though that this service has the potential to be better if the dining car was used properly and the infrastructure issues with Istanbul and its surrounding areas were resolved, but otherwise consider me a huge fan and a reminder that Turkey is still doing a lot more than countries like the UK in terms of getting its high-speed rail up and running. I believe the best part of this journey though was the price. I paid 1,385 Turkish lira for my seat in the VIP compartment, which is around £27 at the time of booking. Given the amazing comfort on offer as well as the light food service, I think this is exceptional value for money, so if you're in Turkey and want to travel between most of the country's major cities, why not give the YHT a go? It certainly won't disappoint. That being said, the congestion around the Istanbul area did delay us a bit. We arrive into Ankara's purpose-built YHT terminal around 14 minutes late, located just next to the old station still in use for local traffic and right in the heart of the Turkish capital. Now you've heard from me, I want to hear from you. What did you think of the TCDD YHT service? Have you used Turkish high-speed rail before, or has this video convinced you to give it a go? Let me know in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like and share it if you did to aid the channel's growth, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more content such as this weekly. As we pass through the impressive Ankara terminal, I'm off to my nearby hotel to get some rest and relaxation in ahead of an early start the following day. Thanks so much for coming with me on this trip, and I look forward to bringing you with me on my next one.